it is in fact water baptism, but he believes it is in fact water baptism, but he believes it is of no significance. He says it's figurative. We have a phone call coming in. Let's see, at least. All right, so hold on just a second. All right, yes, you're on Religious Review.
Yes, sir, I have a question. Why is it that you are so worried about what all these other people are doing? Why if you have a different opinion about it, why can't you just, I mean, obviously people are going to disagree. Why is it such a big deal to you that they don't agree with how you preach? I don't understand that.
Sir, I asked you the same thing. What's your problem today? You're calling in and you must disagree with me and you feel like calling in on our program and doing it on the air. What's your problem?
I have a problem with you disagreeing with everybody else.
Well, I have a problem with you disagreeing with me, so now we're equal.
No, we're not. I don't go around having a studio program.
You're on the air now, sir.
Yeah, because you are on the air.
Wait a minute, I'm on the air because these guys have actually been on the air all around here. R.J. Barber's been on the air for over 25 years espousing this stuff, so now I'm on the air.
They talk about you, though? Are they saying how bad you are?
Yes, Elmer Towns is on record saying the Church of Christ is false. Dwayne King is on the air on the record saying the Church of Christ is false. And now, sir, you are...
That is all you do is condemn them and say how all of them are going to hell.
So what are you doing today? Are you saying I'm going to heaven?
No.
Am I going to heaven?
No.
Am I going to heaven?
I just think that everybody, just because somebody has a different belief doesn't mean you should dedicate your entire program to saying how, wrong and incorrect they are.
Okay, well, let me ask. What should we do? Build buildings and keep ourselves apart since we disagree?
No, I think you should say
Wait a
what you
minute.
believe to the people that want to hear it.
Did you just say no, we shouldn't build buildings and keep ourselves apart?
I think you should have a church, and the people that believe you should come to your church.
Wait a minute, sir. Jesus already has purchased the church with his blood. How am I going to have a church?
I guess you can find a brick building and rent it, and then people will come to it like most people do in normal churches.
Is that what you think a church is? Is a brick?
Opinion of a church.
A church is a brick building?
And I say that's 100% of Christianity is what most people do.
All right, so Jesus bought a brick building with his blood right here.
No, sir.
Okay, which is it? You said he did, now you're saying he didn't.
So I'm saying that's the way most people have church.
Well, I can't help how most people do. Do you go along with all the Catholics? They bow down to the Pope. And
I'm not a Christian at all. I don't even follow Christianity.
Oh, so what's your big deal then?
I just think the fact that all you do is bash other people all day long in your program, I just think I don't think that's a very good way to do things.
Well, I just heard...
Every time I turn on your program, you're bashing another preacher, and I never hear any other preachers bashing you.
I just heard... Oh, sir, they're bashing me all the time. They're just to court. And for
they're
what?
They're probably bashing you because that's all you do is have a program in which you bash them.
Now, wait a minute. Are you saying that I started the bashing around here when there were actually... Danville is the city of churches. They've been bashing each other for hundreds of years before I ever got here.
I've never heard anybody do any bashing.
Well, sir, you don't go to church. Do you really represent a part of our community?
I listen to it all the time.
What'd you say?
I see it all the time, and nobody's doing it but you.
Sir, if you go to the Baptist church, you'll hear them bash the Pentecostals, I promise you. And if you haven't, I'll give you the tapes to prove it. I've got tapes of Elmer Towns bashing the Pentecostal. I've got tapes of the Pentecostal Holiness Church and Horse Pastor bashing Jerry Falwell. If you want to hear some bashing, sir, I got plenty of these religions bashing each other.
Then if they're doing it, I say that's equally bad. But I just never hear any of them doing it. Whenever I turn on the TV and whenever I come across various preachers, you are always on and you're always bashing these other churches. I think if you don't have a program on TV about religion, it'd be about, well, these people are doing this wrong. It should be about you telling other people, if everybody else is wrong, then why don't you, instead of just bashing these other people, why don't you just say, this is the way things should be?
Okay, so here's what I should do. Somebody somewhere did something wrong, but I can't tell who it is.
Who cares what they did?
Oh, so, sir, how about you just move along to...
All these other people leave. You should say,
sir,
this is what you need to do to get to heaven.
Sir, why don't you just move along to Seinfeld? That's a show about nothing. You said, who cares what anybody did? You actually got on the wrong channel. Seinfeld's your show. A show of nothing.
I love Seinfeld. Seinfeld's a great show. It's much better than your show.
All right. Move on to Seinfeld. Thank you for calling.
I just want to call you and let you know that you have a jacked up show when you're constantly bashing other
And
people.
now you're doing the same thing on the air.
Yes, I am.
And you don't even go to church.
That's why I don't, because of people like you.
Oh, really?
People like you give church a bad.
Okay.
Now you don't deliver a positive message.
Okay, this.
Very negative. You seem like you're against everybody. Everybody's out against you.
Sir, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Which do you think the Apostle Paul spoke about more, the cross of Christ or opposition to the law of Moses?
That would be something you'd have to answer. I don't know.
All right. It is actually about 20-1. The Apostle Paul spent the majority of his writings opposing the law, and he only mentions the cross less than times. Now, should I actually follow the Apostle Paul? The law was the problem, and so he spoke about the problem. Denominationalism, division is the problem. Now, if I follow Paul, I will speak about the problem, and I can't help it that actually is our issue today.
But it always seems like you're upset at somebody, and somebody has ticked you off. And I never hear any of these other preachers, and I know Daniel Lackey. That's my brother. He's a good friend of mine that I went to school with. That's his dad. He's a great guy, and I've never, I've been to his church before several times, and I've never been to a sermon where it was divisive or it was aggressive towards anybody else. His sermons are always, it's a positive message. This is what you need to do in your life. This is how you can improve your life.
How about, can I let you...
Very aggressive.
Sir?
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Can I let you hear what Jesus says about positive lessons and people always liking it?
Yeah, what does he say?
In Luke 6:26, Jesus actually says, "Woe unto you when all men speak well of you, so did their fathers the false prophets." So you're telling me that Daniel Lackey never opposes or aggravates anybody, that everybody always, basically, they just love him?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that his general outlook is positive. And there's a lot of people that would say they disagree with him, but it's not a reason for contention. They just disagree with him, and that's the end of it.
Wait a minute. No, they build buildings to keep themselves away from him is what they actually do. Right down the road, Westover Baptist has a building. They're all Baptists, but see, Westover is independent, and Lamar Mooningham is Southern Baptist, and they split up several years ago, over 150 years ago, over the fact that one of them wanted to have slaves and the other didn't, and they haven't gotten together since. Now, you're telling us that they're all not having contention. But see, sir, I can't sit by and let you say that, because I know better.
Well, maybe they do have contention, but it don't seem that they have the level of contention that you have.
Well, that's because, sir, they're keeping it from you. They have a very strong contention. If you would call me, I will give you a debates between Baptists and Methodists where they have had contention for years. One of them called the other the devil, called the Catholics the devil, and that'd be the Baptists, saying that their doctrine is from hell. You just don't hear it, I believe, because you don't go to church enough. I guarantee you they have a very strong level of contention, and it causes them to build hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of brick and mortar to keep themselves apart on Sunday.
Well, I do agree that, difference in beliefs does lead to division, but I just don't think it should lead to this much contention just because people interpret something differently, So,
I agree.
Because I believe it differently, I'm going to give it to people I believe. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's got to be wrong, obviously.
And, sir, what I'm trying to do, and I'm pressing them, trying to aggravate and agitate them to the point where they will find.
Okay, I'm listening too. I agree with them people, the women that call in. It's very rude. Why you act like that? It say only God can judge me. And people out here, you scaring a lot of people like that. Why you so mean like that? What's wrong with you?
Okay, now, are you saying that only God can judge?
I know that man right there, whoever he is, I don't know him.
Okay.
I can't judge him either.
All right. Can you judge his actions?
Going in them churches like that, like judging them. I wouldn't go even mess with no pastor because listening too. I agree with them people, the women that called in. It's very rude. Why you act like that?
On what does the Bible say? That's the way it goes. We begin with a call, and the lady is saying that I'm rude, and why do I act the way that I act? And tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to examine the way different pastors act. We're going to examine how off-duty police act tonight. And I'm not for to defund the police, but I can tell you this. I do know why individuals are against police in a lot of instances. And so we're going to be discussing that tonight. We're going to be showing some of it, and I'll show you another piece of footage that we saw last week. We'll interweave it into our broadcast tonight. I want you to have our contact stuff. I want you to know that you can actually watch us on YouTube anytime. Today, pretty much for the last all evening, all it's been about on television, local television here, is Caleb this, Caleb that. Right now it's 9 o'clock. It is replaying a show from 4 o'clock. Caleb Robertson and the Martinsville newspaper. Caleb Robertson and the Martinsville newspaper. Caleb Robertson and the something of the arts. What is it? The Art Museum in Martinsville. They raised $90,000. How'd they do it? Well, you'll have to tune in tomorrow night. That's basically what's going to end up playing, because as this thing unfolds, it's just, I don't even want to even begin to guess how it's going to turn out tomorrow. But I have seen today, and it has just been unbelievable. Community, all levels of the community, individuals who ran for office, had to get involved in it. People that are in office got involved in it, and it's just, hey, now here's the question. Are you for this kind of stuff? Tonight, as we start talking about ourselves and what it is that we need to be doing, the first thing that I want you to see is this slide. That is what is actually left behind when you have a heart replacement. I'd say, well, in the world, I didn't tune in for medical science tonight. Well, when the Bible talks about the heart, it really isn't that. I don't know if you know that or not. A lot of people put their hand on their chest and they say, I really feel it right here. You don't feel it right there. That is your blood pump right there. And this is actually something that can take place. It is a heart transplant, a physical heart transplant. But tonight, what we're talking about is a spiritual heart transplant. You heard that lady talking about calling me, that people say I'm rude, and then I'm talking to you about being involved with the police in a negative kind of way. I showed you Chief of Police last week, had a video on him, and you could tell how he acted once he realized that we were videoing him. Well, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is they were videoing us. There was a video camera right there in the hallway, and so if you're in Danville, there are video cameras everywhere. And so the policemen have video cams on their dash, on their vests. We have police issue vest cams our own self. So, it's just the way the world is. But here's the thing. The very thing that alarms people about us, I'm saying the very thing that is keeping people who are members of the Church of Christ from watching us and so alarmed at us and actually being hateful and contrary about the fact that people in local churches of Christ throughout the country watch us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and talk to us on a regular basis. The thing that alarms them is actually the thing that is supposed to be our identity. We're the ones who have actually had the heart transplant. We have a different heart as a result of the fact of obeying the gospel. Now, here's the issue that we're dealing with. Individuals in the churches, the Church of Christ, and the sectarian world, this is their problem. And it's a heart problem. You adulterers and adulteresses, know you not that the friendship of the world... Slow down here. James 4:4, so you know exactly where this is. You adulterers and adulteresses, know you not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Now, basically, what actually is taking place, we just had a 10-minute bumper for the broadcast stations that tune in. As our program comes up, we're going into different areas. We're streaming out into YouTube, and local broadcast station that picks up our YouTube and rebroadcast it in different areas, they have to have that. They have to have a slot so that they know that we're really here. Now, the station doesn't need to know we're here. They know, what are we talking about? Live TV. But we were listening to a 10-minute call and a guy arguing with me about why it is that he thinks that I'm so negative. And we've started our broadcast tonight with this call, and we want to continue to listen. I want you to notice how this person turns. And I would wonder at some point that some of the individuals who watch my broadcast, I'm saying watching these days, oh man, there are just scores and scores of individuals who have made the switch. They didn't like me, they thought I was a nut, and then they continued to watch, and they began to realize this guy is basically hitting on all of his cylinders. And he has got all of his energy. The guys that work with him, they got all of their energy trained in on problems that are in our world rather than trying to make friends with the world, which is what most religious people do in leadership. They want to be glad-handing everybody, and they're shaking your hand 1 minute, but they're shaking you down the next minute. And we're not involved in that, and I want to let you see how one individual actually made the change right here on the broadcast.
God can judge me, and people out here, and you scandalizing people like that. Why are you so mean like that? What's wrong with you?
Okay, now, are you saying that only God can judge?
I mean, I know, I'm not, that man right there, whoever he is, I don't know him.
Okay.
I can't judge him either.
All right. Can you judge his actions?
You know, going in them churches like that, like judging them, I wouldn't go even mess with no pastor, because God, they've been called by God to preach the word.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
How I know what?
How do you know someone's been called?
In the pulpit.
Well,
they got documentations. They got license to preach. They can't go into a church and preach unless they got a license to preach. They got doctorate degrees.
Okay. All right. Can I show you something?
Okay.
Can I show you something, ma'am?
Sure you can.
All right. Do you know this gentleman right here?
You can.
Do you know this gentleman right here?
Oh, yes, he a holy man.
Can you mute your TV and just talk on your phone? Hold on. Okay. Now, do you happen to know this gentleman?
I don't know him like that, but I know he's trouble.
Oh, you know he's trouble?
Yes, I heard a lot about him, and it wasn't good.
Okay, now he says that he's called, and do you know he actually has documentation?
He gonna stand up for anybody. No, now him. Oh, that right there. No, he ain't godly, and he don't need to be behind no pulpit, because come to find out, he took a 357 in the church. You don't walk up in God's house with no gun.
Now, I don't really know what you're referring to. This is Joseph Mayo. Is that the same?
I know him.
Okay.
He owned that church over there in Ridgeway. That won't nobody stay there with him. He robbed people out of their money.
Okay, now, ma'am, you said to me a moment ago that I should never go up and investigate these people because...
Yeah, that's the difference.
Okay, all right, help me. How do I know who I can investigate?
Wasn't that for us him?
Yeah.
Okay. So that right there, that's the one you mean, right? Okay, that's one of them that you're saying that you don't think that he's a doctrine and he ain't true for his word.
I absolutely...
I agree with you on this one right there. He's something else.
Okay.
He got the preaching behind the pulpit. Well, I got a house, big, great big house in Martinsville. And then he got this and that in the room. He got Rolls Royces, Mercedes. That's what he was bragging about last, and but them things are only temporarily.
Okay.
It's going to be here when he's gone. Now, on your behalf right there, you're right on some of that, because you know what? I agree with you on that.
Okay.
He just wanted people to put money in that offering plate, so, keep him up. I do agree with you with him. He ain't nothing but a pit bull in trouble, and they yanked the child up, and because he was, like mental retarded, but the child had sense enough to know what he was saying, that it wasn't right. That man right there ain't nothing but a big-time drug dealer.
Okay, well, I don't know any of those kinds of things. I only know. Okay, I'm telling you what I do know. I know in this university right here that he says he has his doctor's degrees from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. That university is from Texas, and if you use this university in Texas,
That's right, Mr. Jones. You're right, Mr. Jones.
Okay. All right. I appreciate the call. Okay, thank you for...
I apologize on that part. You is right.
All right. I'm saying I sure do appreciate your call.
Okay, I'm listening too.
How'd you like that? Let's see, that was 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we ended up presenting evidence that changed this lady's thinking process about us. And so what it really got down to is, if you have been brought up a certain way and you've been told by pastors that you should not ever talk about another pastor, a man of God, and they basically use a passage in, depending on which book you're looking at, if you're looking at 1 Kings or you're looking at Chronicles, they're going to basically be telling you that you should not touch God's anointed. Well, that wasn't talking about any of them. It was basically talking about Abraham, God keeping a king from harming Abraham. So that's not even talking about y'all. And number two, y'all are not God's anointed. So number three, that doctor's degree don't mean anything in the real world. They're not real. None of them are state approved. All of these divinity schools, even Liberty University right up here in Virginia, one of the biggest Christian religious, it's not Christian, it's just religious university, biggest one in the United States. It's not accredited by the state of Virginia. And if you don't believe that, all you have to do is get on the Virginia state website.gov for education, and it'll tell you that Liberty University, their divinity school is not accredited. So they're just giving out pieces of paper. And if you happen to be a holiness person, you can go into Liberty University and get a degree, and you can't even preach in a Baptist church for that degree. See how that works? So basically, she changed her mind. And, if you're wondering about me on that particular broadcast, I was sick during this time frame. I did not know that I had cancer, but I did have cancer. And I found it out in about 6 months after this was going on. You can see there that we're broadcasting in the morning. And we had done a segment on Joseph Mayo and put cameras on his big house in Roanoke and got him to talk, candidly on television and tell about how he was working hard, and his wife bought that Rolls Royce for him and had a helicopter and a bus and had a assisted living and all this kind of thing. And, he basically told on himself right there on live television and ended up being convicted as a result of the fact that he told on himself because he's disabled, and he ended up saying he's working hard and all these kind of things. And so had a lot of interaction with him, Joseph Mayo. How did I find out? People put me on to him. They basically told me about this individual. And so, listen, I can't be a friend of the world. I have to be like Jesus, and that's what we're basically showing you here. And that's the thing that alarms so many people about us, and it's really supposed to be your identity. So, tonight, if you're having problems with us, it may be that you're really having a problem right here. You need to have a heart transplant, a spiritual heart transplant. You need to have a change of heart, and you need to basically look at the New Testament, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to keep you from being alarmed about the things that you see that we're doing and trying to change your identity. Because you know what? Churches of Christ and you folk out in the sectarian world, you're looking more like the world than you do the folk in the New Testament. And I know that's hard. That's hard to put that out there, but that's just the way it is. We're going to prove that tonight. So I wanted to bring you up to date on something that we watched last week. Now, do you remember that last week we were talking about a woman that came to our tent? And I want to let you actually look at this again very quickly, and we're going to add something to it.
Well, they've been saying it on TV ever since I got to Danville. The Baptists call up every other week and say it's amniotic fluid. If they could get somebody...
Baptist and my pastor, my brother, he never teaches it.
All right.
He never.
You know what, ma'am? I appreciate you for being firm, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll visit both of them, and I will apologize in front of Danville if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, and then what will you do if I'm right? Obey the gospel.
I do obey the gospel.
Have you been baptized?
Yes, I have.
For the remission of your sins?
Now,
Yes, I have.
All right.
that's at a tent. A lady brought her sister to the tent. I'm basically preaching in the tent. She brings her sister, and then we get on television, and she calls up after she's been at the tent talking. You could tell she's getting aggravated. Listen to her on television now.
Now tonight, what I'm asking is I'm asking for the other lady. Please call me tonight and let me know how I can get in touch with the Baptist preacher who is supposedly teaching baptism for the remission of sins, so we can follow up on this, give him a chance to come to the tent and demonstrate that I'll apologize to all of Danville. You're on What's the Bible Say? Yes, caller.
Yes, you need to apologize to all of Danville. You know, my Bible speaks of false prophets, that which you are. And I'll tell you what, I'm the lady that was sitting there that got up and walked out. You asked me if I had ever been saved. I said, yes, I have.
That's not what I asked you.
Had I ever been baptized? I said, yes, I have. Nothing was discussed about my pastor who baptized me. And you know what? You ought to be ashamed of yourself to even sit up there on that stage and tell lies like you do to call yourself a Christian. You are not a Christian.
Okay.
So
now, folks,
she was at the tent. She went home, watching the program after the tent, and that's what she ends up doing. Now, let me go back to the tent just right quick. Let's see her sister.
If Baptist pastor, that guy, and he knows he can't answer, they're going to ask for him to come. Most people in the Church of Christ don't have the courage. If you're visiting with us for the first time, do right. Now, folks, that don't count.
See that? That's the sister. She comes up. It's all going on while I'm preaching. So you see what we're doing? That's the kind of thing that we're doing all the time. We're in a setting where we are constantly at friction with the world. Everybody else is trying to be friends with the world. And the folks in the Church of Christ who bad-mouthing us for the way we do things, listen, do you have people come into the tent and come up and apologize for their family members' behavior? Then she herself calls on the broadcast, and she tells me that her sister, pastor, is actually in Ringo. And so what do? We basically go to Baptist churches in Ringo. And so notice what we end up coming across.
Hey, how y'all doing? Y'all having Bible study tonight? Are y'all having Bible study tonight?
Yes.
Stephen. Okay, good to meet you.
And I will tolerate no interruptions. I will not tolerate any speaking out of turn. We believe that our services start when the first vehicle pulls in this driveway.
Okay, did you hear? Maybe you didn't hear that. He said, our services start when the first vehicle drives into the driveway. Listen to it.
We believe that our services start when the first vehicle pulls in this driveway and ends when the last vehicle leaves. You listen to me, young man?
So you do things decently and in order.
I'm the pastor of this church. I'm the shepherd of this flock, and don't smart mouth me, young.
Well, now, does that remind you of anybody? I can see why the woman at the tent would behave the way she is. Baptist preacher over here in Ringo. Now, you think you could ask him any questions? I'm saying, let's say she came back from the tent. She goes over to ask the pastor about the questions that I had about baptism, John 3:5, and whether or not that the water in John 3:5, except you be born of water and the Spirit, cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And what is the water? Well, we were discussing what Baptist pastors all over Danville say, and she's like, well, no, my pastor, well, number one, if she were to ask her pastor what he teaches, one of the things he's going to say is, why are you asking that question about John 3:5? And he would accuse her. I'm saying, you might say, well, Johnny, how do you think you know this? I've been doing this my entire preaching life. Since 1986, I have been doing this since 1986, no matter where I was, living in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm basically in the parking lot in Memphis, Tennessee, Walmart, handing out tracts. Some individual comes out of Walmart and tells me to get off the property. And I'm still talking to people as I'm going towards my car, and the person just basically becomes outraged at me and, getting upset. You're going to leave. And I'm like, hey, I'm leaving as fast as I'm going to leave. My wife happens to be in there shopping. So somebody ended up getting a hold of that and wrote to the headquarters at Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas. I get a call up from Walmart in South Haven, Mississippi, outside of Memphis, and the manager of the Walmart wants me to come over there and point out the individual who did that, and they said, we're going to fire her. And I just said, look, I'm tripping over people all the time handing stuff out on the way into Walmart at South Haven, Mississippi. I don't want that woman's job. I just want to be able to have the same privileges that everybody else does. If I want to hand out stuff in the parking lot and I'm not getting in any people's way, my wife's in there, see what I'm saying? This is the kind of stuff. Why would you do that? People ask, are you trying to make a career for yourself? Listen, I had a heart transplant when I obeyed the gospel. I used to didn't care about anybody but me. And then when I obeyed Jesus, when Jesus became the Lord of my life, the King of the kingdom that I am in, God my Father, I started doing differently. And so, you don't like my method? Well, are you basically getting any responses? That's basically what I would ask. And so, watch how this guy ends up.
Sir, is this how
Sir.
Smart. Yeah, when he protects his sheep from a bunch of wolves.
I believe the pastor's supposed to be a peaceful person.
No.
Yes, sir.
You didn't read your Bible.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the problem with you folks, is you don't read your Bible.
Okay.
And I don't play around here. And if you speak up, turn that off.
Let's get another look at that.
That's the problem with you folks, is you don't read your Bible.
Okay.
And I don't play around here. And if you speak up,
There's an evil eye now. If you speak up, are you recording? What are you doing there?
Turn that off.
Sir, this is private property?
Leave.
Y'all, this is the kind of pastors, this is what they deal with out in the religious realm. This is the kind of thing that we have friction with. Somebody called after this and basically told us that we're lucky that we're not dead. You don't know these pastors. They started talking about the pastor being a Vietnam vet and living on grub worms and stuff like that out in Vietnam and eating vegetables, he found in the woods and whatnot, and we're lucky we didn't get killed. You know what? I actually agree. The way individuals act in religion. So here we're moving on now. Now, basically tonight, I want to show you what is going on in the religious realm, and actually police are involved in it as well. So, you might be wondering, well, why, y'all should not be having scrapes with the police, all right? Listen, we're basically, Mark and Micah are in Blairs, Virginia, which is right outside of Danville. And I want to let you hear the nice conversation that they're having with the head usher. Take a listen.
Good, sir. How are you? Pretty good, sir. How you?
Evening, sir.
What?
Evening. How you doing?
Evening.
Berry Rose?
Yeah, just like a flower. I thought you would tell me your name and you said me.
No, sir.
All right.
We're trying to figure out the reason for the
head usher.
head usher.
Yeah, I'm over all the ushers that we have. And anything else that needs to be done. And anything we can do for you, just let us know.
About recording, do y'all have any?
As long as we're on TV, and as long as you don't disturb anybody, then all right with us.
Okay.
Nice enough. They're on TV. You see they're recording in there, and they basically record their services. And so he's a head usher, as long as you don't disturb anything. So good to go. We'll take a listen. This is another individual that they come into contact with.
Good to see you. Remember me?
Hey, how you doing?
Mike Klaus.
Mike?
Yeah, do you remember me? Mike Klaus.
You look familiar, but I can't place where
Hey, Micah?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're keying in on anything here tonight, but he is acting a certain way on purpose. He knows good and well that he's seen Mark before and Mark's seen him. And he is having a good time. Let me tell you, he is having a great time. Take a listen.
Hey, good to meet you. Good to meet you. Mike Klaus.
You gonna refresh my memory?
Yeah. I talked with you in the parking lot at a pastor's church there on 41, I think. Can't even remember pastor's name right now. Blessed Hope was a church.
Blessed Hope?
Remember? Yeah,
Brian Edwards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Do me a favor if you will.
So you're the policeman?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes,
now,
sir.
now I remember you.
Yeah, do me a favor if you will, please. Okay, we don't have anybody filming in here except our cameras. Okay, it's just our policy. So if you will honor that, I would certainly appreciate it. Okay. Well, this is private property. This is not public, and that is our stance. That's what we ask. Okay.
So you are a member here?
Yes, sir. I'm a member. I'm on the board. I'm on the board of elders. Pastor and I have already had the meetings about this kind of thing, and he's asked me to take care of it. So I wanted to come down.
They've already told him, ask him to take care of it, is what he said. Well, in fact, this gentleman had Mark basically take a video that he had taped Brian Edwards, conversation that he and Brian Edwards had. Brian actually laid out on Mark's car so that Mark couldn't leave, and he called the police, and this guy, Mike Klaus, shows up. And Mike basically tells Mark that he's on the sidewalk. He said, you cannot record him without his permission. Mark calls me up. I think I'm in Texas, and he basically is asking me, what is the law? And I'm saying, well, you can record the guy. And so the policeman sitting there listening to me, and he said, no. He said, you're going to end up going to jail. Well, I myself, I'm lawyered up. And, I'm going to be calling my lawyer before I get in the jail. And he would represent Mark too. But it's, when it comes down to one of the other guys that I work with, I'm not going to encourage them to do something that would end up causing them a lot of grief. And so basically the gentleman says to Mark, you either erase the tape, erase what's on the tape, the videotape, or you come into the station, because it's not lawful for you to do that. So basically Mark starts erasing the tape. But here's the thing. Mark was also taping Mike Klaus with an audio recorder. So we had it all anyway. He was taping Brian Edwards with an audio recorder, and he was taping the policeman. So once they get through, he ends up talking to Mike Klaus's captain, and guess what it ends up? Officer Klaus don't know what he's talking about, says the captain. But then the captain basically informs us, but you know what? Since you don't have the tape, you can't prove that he did it. Now, are you asking why people want to defund the police? Man, the police target us big time in Danville, Virginia. And again, some individuals say, well, y'all should be targeted. Why? I mean, you heard the head usher. Let's just see her. The head usher actually got back in this before it was all said and done. And let me just let you listen to what he ends up saying. This is Mr. Rose. We're going to hear him actually weigh in a second time. Listen to what he says.
Two things?
Hey, you Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah. Once told you one thing, once told you the other. Go with what I told you, okay? Once told you one thing, once told you the other. Go with what I told you, okay? Once told you one thing, once told you the other.
Now, Mike Klaus says that Mr. Rose was in on the meeting, and he knows that There's no recording allowed. Well, Mr. Rose says, you know what? You hear one thing from one person, go by what I said. How do you like that? Well, see, Mike is a policeman, and he's basically used to having this authority that goes with being a policeman, even when he's not right, on the street or even inside of that building. And he's actually from Indiana, Michigan, somewhere out in that area, and he's over here in Virginia. And you know what? Maybe he doesn't know the laws. The laws are different in Michigan. I know that. But the thing is, you're in Virginia. But I'm saying this is the kind of thing that we actually have to deal with. And why aren't we dealing with it? Now, here we are again in the Danville.
I'll send them around, and they want to see you.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to ask you.
I'm Johnny Robertson, Chief. I just came from the city manager's office. They told me to come down and see you.
Hi, how are you? Your name?
Mark McManus. We're with Religious Review.
What's that? He wasn't asking what is Religious Review. He was asking what you got there.
It's a religious media
online
broadcast,
magazine,
and we do a television broadcast, and we basically were.
And you're filming me now?
Yeah, we're filming you. Chief, are you filming us? Yeah. They had a camera right up there on the top. Maybe you even see it from this shot. I know as we went along there, you can see it. Why are we there? Because we were being targeted on the City Hall steps by one of his officers, and they were asking us why we were talking to two Baptist preachers who were actually holding a prayer rally without a permit. And what we ended up finding out, the city manager didn't give them a permit, and the chief here claims, we don't have it on tape because he said that, I shouldn't actually, it's a gentlemanly thing, we should be gentlemen and not have to tape. What it amounted to is he was basically, it's called selective enforcement. If you're one of the good old boys, then you get preferential treatment, and the barbers in Danville, basically, they're the good old boys. And so they're allowed to do different things in different ways. And so they we ended up having to go to court with these folk, the Baptist folk in Danville. So, Matt, again, as you're watching this, now, there's people watching this all over the place. Can I ask you how we got in the shape we're in this country? You basically have individuals who don't stand up for rights. And rights, what I'm talking about is rights, this is rights. What is right? What is fair? These individuals took an oath to be fair and to follow the code law that basically regulates behavior. Let's say, for instance, in the city of Danville, we're in the city, sometimes we're in the county, and they're not doing it. And it is very hard. I'm saying it's very hard for everybody. You have your friends, you want to be lenient, you want to let your friends be able to extend themselves, express themselves, and get as far as they can go. And then you got these folk in the Church of Christ, and they, just kind of bother, and it's kind of like you're bothering everybody. Well, is that how everybody looks at it? Let's see.
Another call coming in, and we're discussing Paul Nelson as he shows his physique to the camera. You're on Religious Review.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good.
I'd just like to say, this is ridiculous with him flexing his muscle and all that. I feel like you strive to be Christian. That it's really up to God whether you're Christian or not. And I've been watching you folks for a while, and I thought maybe, at first I thought, man, what is he doing? What's going on? Then I called you. I'm the same guy I called you. I believe you're out of town or something, and you told me, who I could get in touch with around here. But I have to say, the more I watch you guys, I believe that you're right, because if somebody's out here preaching, I'm a man. I know the Bible. I know some of the Bible, but
guy's changed his mind. Now, here's a gentleman that used to work with us.
All right, go back to that slide and read what it says right there. Baptism is what? Baptism
is immersion.
No, right here where I'm pointing. Baptism is not part of salvation. All right, that's what the Baptist Church teaches. Baptism is not part of salvation. Now, this is just one example. Look at Acts 2, verse 38.
What'd you say, ma'am?
I said, well, apparently that's not true.
Thank you.
Absolutely, that's not true. And that's the point that we're making, is that that's how we know that this denomination is not abiding in the doctrine of Christ, because what they say is not what the Bible says. Acts 2:38. Acts 2:38 says that Peter said to them, "Repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sins." What is remission of sins?
Remission is forgiveness of sins, right?
Right. Okay.
Now,
so
that's
let me ask
Cody
you a question.
Westbrook. He came all the way from Oklahoma to be in a tent with us. I just can't even count the preachers that have been from different places in the United States. Come in, be on television with us, and then basically they have a heart change. Aaron, what's the Bible say?
Hello, Johnny. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
It's good to hear from you, and it's good to see you preaching.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to thank you for your courage and your strength and your boldness, and keep it up. I love you to death. You're awesome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Arkansas calling in, right?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate it. Appreciate the plug. You never know when we're feeling down. So thank you for the call.
You're welcome.
Okay. You know, you just really wouldn't believe the encouragement that we do get. I'm certainly not complaining tonight. Now, I am complaining about guys like Cody Westbrook, but Cody turning his heart around and being opposed to what we do, it does hurt. You know, I'm saying I've known him for a very long time. But yet, you know, and I'm just going to tell something. Nobody's going to know who the lady is, but those of us who actually know her. I sent her some books one time, and she thanked me, and very, very sweet lady. And then I get a check in the mail just out of the blue, $3,000. Remember the Church of Christ. Now, you think she doesn't appreciate the work we're doing? And I'm just saying, for all the people that turn on us, there are 10, 20, 50, 100 that end up coming our way. Like the friends that we've ended up lost, I hate it. But you know what the problem is? It's what we were talking about. Friends with the world, they need a heart transplant. Now, folks, here's what we're going to look at tonight. We basically are at 9:37, and we're letting you see the playing field. And we're basically getting encouragement as we go along. And, you know, my heart just overflows as a result of hearing her voice and then recounting that story to you all. This is the kind of people that are involved with us, people that love the Lord, and they see the things that we're going through, and they pray for us, and we know she's out there. I always know that she's out there. And so this is the way they take care of us and they encourage us. Now, I want you to notice something. In Acts chapter 9, verse 10, we're going to do a little exercise right here, and it's not going to be that difficult. It's going to go real quick. And I think that you're going to be really surprised. And you're looking at this probably, if you are a student at all of the Bible, you're going to say, I know this. This is very old. You know, it's a well-used, and especially for the Church of Christ. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias. To him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias? And he said, Behold, I'm here, Lord. And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas, for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth. And he hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, I can hear it, Lord. I've heard many things of this man. I have heard by many of this man how much evil he done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he hath authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. Can I ask you something? Is it possible that you've missed something right here when you were reading this? Like you basically have let people talk to you about this verse, and you've had teachers that went through this with you, and then you're done with it. Okay, I know that passage. And so that's basically the conversion of Saul. Is that all that is, really? What you just heard is you heard an individual who is a devout Jew, who is a Christian. He was in the Jewish system previously. He is now a Christian, And the Lord has asked him, I want you to go down and I want you to help Saul out. And he said, here he hath authority from the chief priest. Now, folks, that's a very, very important piece of information that is basically overlooked continuously. When people are thinking about the account that, how these things are going, these people are in a government system themselves. There are tiers, levels to their government. These people are not living in a vacuum. And so when you're basically hearing a man say, I'm afraid, and then you hear his return statement to the Lord, Lord, he has authority from the chief priest. That is as high as it gets as far as the religious civil authority in the Jewish system. The Jews have a system that is basically built, their civil system is built around the priesthood. And they are a part of, it's basically the Supreme Court when it comes to the civil authority. And he has authority from the chief priest. Now, you think everybody knew that? Did you miss something right here? Let me ask you something. I want you to just think, because we're in a time frame right now where this might make some sense. What would happen if a high-level spy were to defect from Russia right now? It's like, I did not have this lesson queued up because we're in this turmoil that we're in. But while I've got it going, and it's right here in front of you, what would happen if a high-level spy were to defect and tell us what Putin is up to? Like all these people in the media, it's just a constant 24/7 for 3 weeks, I think, something like that. You know what they're doing? They're just telling us all kinds of things that are going on in Putin's head and the things going on in Russia. And what if a high-level spy were to defect and all of a sudden this high-level spy that actually had connections to the very supreme leader, chief priest, were to tell us what the plan is? What would you think about that? You are actually looking at it right here. This is exactly what is going on. Acts chapter 25, verse 24. Then Festus said, King Agrippa, and all men which are here present with us, you see this man, about whom all the multitude of the Jews have dealt with me, both at Jerusalem and also here, crying that he ought not to live any longer? Why? Have you ever stopped to question, why is it that these individuals are so rabid about killing Paul? He's changed his name, but they still know who he is. They're rabid. You've got a governor, and now you've got a king, and they're talking to each other. And Festus is actually a new governor. And when he came into his new position, he had these individuals that he's been dealing with. And what do they want? They are crying for Paul that he ought to be killed. And they're wanting, some kind of situation to transpire so they can kill him. Why? Have you ever thought about why? Well, he is a great evangelist. There is no doubt he is a great evangelist, but have you really thought about what is, or have you ever studied what is going on? And have you ever noticed the scenario that ends up being out there that is being put forth for you from God? I'm saying God is unraveling the inner workings of the life of Saul of Tarsus and the leaders, the civil leaders and the authorities, all the authorities, and he's letting you see how they act. I'm saying you're getting a bird's eye view of civil authorities at several different levels. The governor, who was put in by the Romans. You got the king, who is a Judean ruler. And you got the high priest. They're the civil authority when it comes to religion. And he is an individual who is really an interloper. He's a person they don't really like. The Herods are not well liked by the chief priest, but they got to put up with it because that's how government is regulated. He's the king of the Jews. He's put in as a puppet figurehead by the Romans, and the governor is basically here. This is his new outpost. Now, when Festus was coming to the province, after 3 days, he ascended from Caesarea to Jerusalem. Then the high priest and the chief of the Jews informed him against Paul and besought him. Well, what did he besought him about? Well, he tells King Agrippa later, he said, the Jews are dealing with this, about whom all the multitude of the Jews have dealt with me, both at Jerusalem and also here, crying that he ought not to live any longer. And so basically, if you get your Bible out, and we've got the time, you look at the context and you end up seeing what is taking place. In Acts chapter 25, let's get rid of this one over here and we'll get this down sizable so that we can deal with it. Acts chapter 25, we were in verse 4. Look at this. But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea. Now, they're basically, when he comes in on the scene, what do the Jews want to do? They're wanting to talk to him about Saul. When Festus came into the province, after 3 days, he ascended from Caesarea. He goes up to Jerusalem. Then the high priest and the chief of the Jews informed him against Paul and besought him and desired favor against him, that he would send for him to Jerusalem, lay in wait that they might kill him. But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself would depart shortly thither. Let them therefore, said he, which among you are able to go down with me and accuse this man, if there be any wickedness in him. And when he had tarried among them more than 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day, sitting in judgment seat, commanded Paul to be brought. And when he came, the Jews which came down from Jerusalem stood around about and laid many grievous complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. Now I want you to think about this. Why would they actually risk a situation where they could be caught trying to kill a prisoner who has been confirmed as a Roman and is a prisoner of their new governor? Why would they do that? Have you ever thought about that? He's a great evangelist. You got to be kidding. You think that's why they want to kill him? Now, remember what was actually said when we started. We said, you know, what if a high-level spy were to defect? That's really, boy, you talk about somebody from Putin regime, if they were to defect, boy, that's just, think about that, and we get to see that play out in real time. Would that just not be something? That is nothing compared to what we're looking at right here. This is Christianity and Government 101. Acts 25:9. But Festus, willing to do the Jews a pleasure, answered Paul and said, wilt thou go up to Jerusalem and there be judged of these things before me? Not a chance. Not going back to Jerusalem. I know these Jews. They want to kill me. Not going to do it. Paul is a Roman, and so what does he do? He appeals to Caesar. So, here we are. He's appealed to Caesar. And that basically means if you're a Roman, you read this for yourself. That's what ended up happening. Okay, to Caesar you will go. But the plot actually thickens. A Herod shows up right in this time frame, Acts 25, verse 13, and after certain days, King Agrippa and Bernice came into Caesarea to salute Festus. So what do you mean the plot thickens? Okay, Roman governor is one thing, and he's been trying to figure out what is going on with this guy. They have besought me, the multitude of the Jews have been crying out ever since I came into office, and they wanting this guy to die. And so he's had one session with Paul, and Paul is not going to Jerusalem to be. He's not taking another trip. The way he got to Caesarea was harrowing. They had to bring out a full a centurion and horseback, the whole bit, to get him out of Jerusalem to keep him from being killed because of these Jews. Well, notice this, Acts 25, verse 14. When they've been there many days, basically, you're welcoming the new governor. When they've been there many days, Festus declared Paul's cause unto the king, saying, there's a certain man left in bonds by Felix, about whom, when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews informed me, desiring to have judgment against him. To whom I answered, it is not the manner of the Romans to deliver any man to die before that which is accused have accused him face to face, and have license to answer for himself concerning the crime that's laid against him. Well, you already know that he has actually allowed them to do that. And here's what happened. He's telling King Herod Agrippa, who is basically a Jew, against whom, when the accuser stood up, they brought none accusation of such things as I suppose, but had certain questions against him of their own superstition, and one of Jesus, and of one Jesus which was dead, whom Paul affirmed to be alive. It really is amazing to me as I watch this unfold. So you've got Festus, Roman. He's basically talking about Jewish religion. He's talking to a king, Agrippa. And oftentimes different levels of authority, they don't know what other person's personal feelings and beliefs are. He's just basically being welcomed in by Agrippa and Bernice. And he's talking about, the state here's a problem that we're having. This is a real problem. Since I've been here, it has been constant about this one fella and the stuff that I thought they were going to bring to accusing him, and it had to do with their own superstition, and of one Jesus which was dead, whom Paul affirmed to be alive. Now, you're talking about Herod's religion now. When we said the plot thickens, Herod's religion basically is, well, just look at this. If you weren't in Jerusalem, let's just say that you were in Corinth or you were in Thessalonica, when Gallio was the deputy of Achaia, the Jews made insurrection with one accord against Paul and brought him to the judgment seat. And notice what they did. So they bring him to the judgment seat, and the judge says of Jews in Achaia, in another province like Asia Minor, not in actual Jewish area, but if it be a question of words and names and of your law, look you to it, for I will be no judge of such matters. Now, Agrippa basically believes in one fella named Moses. They claim, the Jews that are involved with Moses, they claim to have disappeared into the wilderness with Moses after, according to them, have overcome the entire Egyptian army and crossed the Red Sea in a miracle, and they were devoured in the wilderness, and 40 years later they came out of the wilderness with a fighting army, standing army of 601,000. Now that's what Herod believes. And so Gallio does not believe that, and this is the way he treats Jews who believe in this religion having to do with this, encircling this man Moses and his law, and these people who have descended from him, and that's basically Festus. He is talking to Herod, and he is talking to Herod about Herod's own religion, and Herod is not letting it out necessarily, but he is listening to what's going on about Saul. Notice this. Acts 25:22, then Agrippa said unto Festus, I would also hear the man myself tomorrow, said he. Thou shalt hear him. Well, notice this. Acts 24:24, the previous governor, name was Felix. After certain days when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Jewish, he sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ. Now, y'all, you've got to strip this back now. Ananias said, we basically know that he has authority from the chief priest. And you have him arrested now, years later, and he is in front of a governor named Felix, and Felix's wife is a Jewess. Now you have Festus. He doesn't really have a clue. He didn't think that the charges were going to be the kind of charges that they were. He thought it was going to be something, that the guy had done that was a conspiracy against the government. Ends up being about one Jesus that is dead, and Paul says he's alive, and these folk want to kill him. And then you have King Agrippa say, I'd like to hear this man. Acts 26:1. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, Thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Then Paul stretched forth his hand and answered for himself. I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because I shall answer for myself this day before thee, touching all the things which I am accused of the Jews, especially because I know thee to be an expert in all the customs and questions which are among the Jews. Wait a minute now. Hold up. I didn't say that I was basically going to take your side. But you've got to realize, folks, that Paul actually just put into play, it's like a coin or a extra card that he's holding. I know that you're an expert in the customs and the questions which are among all the Jews. Herod Agrippa, king of the Jews. Festus, the former governor, left Paul there rather than having him tried. His wife was a Jewish. She knew what was going on. She knew what had happened. And she knew about this Jesus. And so does Herod Agrippa. And he wants to hear this. Acts 26:24. And as he thus spake for himself, he basically making his same appeal, Paul is, that he had seen Jesus on the road to Damascus. And he had been commissioned by Jesus. And as he thus spoke for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself, much learning to make thee mad. So basically Festus is hearing the full out telling of this in front of somebody who is an expert in things having to do with the Jews. And basically Paul is letting all of his guard down, and he's telling the whole story, and he's telling it to a person who he says is an expert in the things that have happened. But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. Now watch this. For the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely. For I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him, for this thing was not done in a corner. What are we talking about? What would you think about a high-level spy, Russian spy, who defects and tells you what's going on with Putin? Acts 25:24, the Jews have dealt with me both at Jerusalem, also crying that he ought not to live any longer. And now Paul's talking to somebody who actually is an expert and knows these things because they were not done in a corner. What are we talking about? Let's back up. Matthew 27:57. When the even was come, there came a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph, who also himself was Jesus' disciple. And he went to Pilate and he begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be delivered to him. So you got a rich man who comes to Pilate after they've killed Jesus as a result of the same kind of stuff associated with the high priest and the powers that be in the Jewish civil government. Herod was involved in this, another different Herod, and Pilate ends up letting them have their way. And then a rich man named Joseph of Arimathea wants the body of Jesus. And so he gets the body of Jesus. Now, Matthew chapter 26, verse 62. Now the next day that followed the day of the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees came together unto Pilate. Now you got another group of individuals coming to Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember that this deceiver said while he was yet alive, after 3 days I will rise again. Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the third day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away. And say unto the people, He is risen from the dead. So the last era shall be worse than the first. Pilate said unto them, Have a watch. Go your way, make it as sure as you can. So they went and made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. Well, you know what happened. On the first day of the week, Matthew chapter 28, Jesus raised from the dead. And the soldiers actually were, we're just going to say, discombobulated. They just didn't know what was going on. They were overwhelmed. And Jesus was basically able to come out of his grave and be somewhere else. And so what happened? Now when they were going, behold, some of the watch came into the city and showed unto the chief priests all the things which were done. And when they were assembled with the elders and had taken counsel, they gave large money unto the soldiers. The Jews are involved in a conspiracy here. They gave large money to the soldiers, saying, Say ye, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we slept. And if this come to the governor's ear, we will persuade him and secure you. We will actually commit fraud. And we'll actually, to the highest level here, we already have been involved in all kinds of just unruly behavior. And we'll persuade him to secure you. So they took the money and they did as they were taught. And this saying is commonly reported among the Jews until this day. And the problem is that an individual who is a high-level civil authority named Saul of Tarsus had defected. And he knows all this stuff. And Herod Agrippa also knows these kinds of things. It wasn't done in a corner. Now, y'all, this is the catch here. Galatians 1:14. Paul said of himself, And I profited in the Jews' religion above many my equal in my own nation, being more exceeding zealous of the traditions of my fathers. See what this is about? Profiting. These individuals are profiting. And what we're trying to do tonight is we're trying to get you to actually have a heart transplant. And the individuals who are in the business of profiting, they are aggravated with us and they're upset with us. Why? Because they actually know the truth. They know the kinds of things. Have you ever thought about how difficult it is for us to survive here? Our friends have basically forsaken us for the most part. And then these individuals like the chief here, he's not the chief anymore, but you know what? He's dead. We have 2 states, 5 or 6 counties, all the way to Lynchburg, Virginia, Liberty University. All of these people know about us. Some of them have pressed charges on us, have the city of Danville involved in a court case with us. And it's just simply amazing. We have to live in this environment, but we learned it from the New Testament. And our heart is where it needs to be. You're on What Does the Bible Say as we go off.
Hi, Johnny. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
All right. I'm calling from Connecticut, and I I really want to call today to tell you that God bless you for the work you are doing. I've been watching you from Africa, and I'm in the United States now, and I felt touched to call you today and then to tell you that God is going to continue to strengthen you and your family. I know it's always going to be tough sometimes, but with me and then my friends in Africa, we are always excited about the work you're doing here in the United States, in Virginia. And then I'm hoping that when you guys have your 10th meeting with John Shannon, I'm going to visit you and then come hear the word of God as well. God bless you so much. And I'm hoping that I'll take your phone number and then call you, and then we're going to talk more, okay? Thank you for the good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the call. Okay, folks, that's what it's about. From Africa, via Connecticut, you're watching What Does the Bible Say? Always ask for, what does the Bible say? God bless you. Good night.